Okay, everybody, we're live. Welcome to the Azure and AI Show. Um, we have Joseph with us there. Joseph is an MVP and an MCT, and he's with us from Lagos in Nigeria. Welcome, Joseph. And from Chicago, we have Dan Ray, and Dan is going to do some stuff here this week on the Microsoft data centers. Very exciting if you want to know how everything works there. And myself, Frank Falvey, here from Cork in Ireland. I'm going to do some stuff on the new AI agents, maybe in Copilot chat, and we'll pop into Copilot Studio then as well. So Dan, do you want to kick it off there with your one?
Sure. Thanks for having me again, Frank. I know that we do this weekly, and we're going on almost 2.5 years at this point. It's
Wow.
a weekly show about Azure and AI. And one of the things that I did before I left Microsoft in 2016 was I had the opportunity to actually give the Azure data centers, the physical locations that Azure runs out of, tours to Microsoft customers. We did that for customers, some partners, and we would fly people into Chicago as far away as South Africa. I had a tour that was from some folks in South Africa that were involved and representing the first South African data center that Microsoft built and created on their global, worldwide network of data centers that power Azure. And so when you think about the Azure data centers, I want you to imagine the largest place you have been in the world. That could be a sporting stadium, that could be a very, very large building, that could be a outdoor concert, wherever that might be, where you just see a sea of people or seats or a stage with thousands of seats. Imagine all of those seats, people, plants. If you've ever been to a field, cornfield, or anything that's been planted outside, flowers, whatever it might be, if there's thousands of something, imagine all of those objects being servers instead of people or plants or seats. That's what it's like to walk around a Azure data center. Think of the largest place that you've been in the world, and then instead of a sea of whatever is there, um, imagine all of those being servers. And those servers would all individually be running in collective ways Azure services. And Jeffrey Snover, who is the godfather of PowerShell, if you're familiar with Microsoft PowerShell, you may or may not be familiar with Jeffrey Snover. He was a Microsoft employee for a long, long time and had a saying that I really liked. And that was treat your servers like you do cattle. He had an analogy of, pets or cattle. And his analogy was in the past, we named our servers, and our servers had a particular use, like a server might be a domain controller, or a server might be a web server or a database server. And it had a name, it had like a friendly name, just like a pet would, right? If you've owned a cat or a dog or a pet of any kind, you're probably familiar with your pet had a name, your fish, your goldfish, whatever it was, you give those pets a name. Well, in the Azure data centers, there are so many of these servers, and the individual servers aren't what provide a particular website or a particular Microsoft 365 tenant for a customer or Intra as the identity plane for Azure. There are numerous servers that do that. And the servers don't necessarily have to have really friendly names. So the analogy was to treat them like cattle. You don't name individual animals. If there are hundreds of horses or cows, or, name the animal. The other thing I like to use is think about a field of flowers. You don't name each individual flower individually. You may name them by type, right? You might have, this is a tulip, or this is a rose. When you're in the Azure data centers, not only are you going to be overwhelmed by the number of servers, but the one thing that you can sometimes tell in an Azure data center is by the type of server, similar to how I could identify different roses and flowers by their colors, right? Tulips that are red versus tulips that are yellow. There might be white varieties, there might be multicolor varieties of flowers. That's how I differentiate the different types of flowers. You could do the same thing with an Azure data center, where you might look at a particular server or types of servers and say, this is something that has a lot of GPUs and is putting out a lot of heat. Graphic processing units, as Frank, I know you've talked about, are part of what powers Azure AI services, and services like Copilot are the GPUs, or graphic processing units, in the hardware that we use. And AI needs hundreds or more, thousands really, of GPUs to be responsible for the processing that happens when you type in a prompt for whether it's ChatGTP or Copilot or even other services. A lot of times, either processing, memory, or GPUs, graphic processing units, are involved in getting you an answer. And then obviously the network is involved to deliver that answer to you. So at a Microsoft data center, you have all of these different concepts coming together, and the servers themselves don't have friendly names. The racks and the rows of servers, and the columns, or the height of the servers, aren't necessarily all named, and you don't see what service is being provided by that. There's not a row of Bing servers or a row of Xbox servers. Microsoft in the data centers homes or houses all of Microsoft services, both for commercial or business use, as well as for consumer use, like Bing, Xbox, you name it. If Microsoft makes it available, it's somehow involved and served up from these data centers, the same types of data centers that serve up Microsoft 365 and the Azure services, whether those are virtual machines or databases, websites and apps, you name it, Microsoft has that in their infrastructure. So in the Chicago data center, not only did they have these traditional huge rows of servers, but they also did some of the initial testing of what Microsoft eventually put underwater. And that is the containers that would then house these servers and deal with the power and the network and the potential cooling that's required by all the heat that the GPUs and the servers produce. So in Chicago, Microsoft started by containerizing servers in what were moved into the data center from a semi-truck. So a huge delivery of servers would be dropped off, similar to how you drop off any type of semi-truck load of material. But instead of unloading it and maybe putting all the boxes or the servers back together when they got to the Microsoft data center, they just unloaded the trailer. And the trailer was then hooked up to power and electricity. And then the servers were spun up and were online in Azure. They did the same type of testing in places where they could put the server containers outdoors. In Chicago, it gets extremely cold in the winter and extremely hot in the summer. So they did some of this testing in places like Dublin, Ireland, closer to where Frank is in the world than where I am. And Dublin typically has a very temperate or moderate temperature. It doesn't get extremely hot normally, and it doesn't get extremely cold normally. The last time I was in Frank's country, we had snow on the ground. And I thought, why did I leave Chicago in January to come somewhere else that has snow? Frank, I think you told me it was the first time in 5 years that it had snowed in Ireland. Is that true?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. So in places where it's not as often that it gets really, really cold or really, really hot, these containers could be left outside. And so in the probably 2015 timeframe, Microsoft did a test where they actually took the containers and instead of moving them around on semis, they built a containerize, pressurized it, and actually put it off of the coast of the Orkney Islands, off of Scotland. And the Orkney Islands and this test or demonstration was for an entire year. They submerged a container full of Microsoft servers, cloud Azure servers, and they hooked it up to power and network, and they let those servers operate for an entire year. And then Microsoft did a bunch of tests on how well these servers survived being underwater for a year. How did they perform? And based on those testing, some of the containerization and some of the future of Azure was was tested. So these containers started in Chicago. In Chicago, they were put indoors, so they were protected from the elements. They weren't submerged in water. They were cooled in very traditional ways, I will say. And then Microsoft also has a commitment to the environmentals of these servers that are in the Azure data center. So the final point that I'll talk about here is what Microsoft is doing from a standpoint of power, cooling, and water consumption at the over 300 data centers that Microsoft operates. Microsoft has the largest footprint from a region perspective, and within any particular region, there are multiple physical data centers. So, from a redundancy and a resiliency perspective, not only do you have to think about that largest place that you've ever been, whether it's a football field, football in the rest of the world would be a soccer stadium. In the United States, that could be American football. That could be a concert venue where you've seen a performer. It could be a field of, plants or flowers or whatever. And wherever that is, think about visiting 300 of those all around the world. Most of the data centers are in places where Microsoft may cool the servers using air conditioning or chillers or water of some sort. So besides power usage effectiveness, which Microsoft has been talking about and tracking for over 10 years, probably 15 years, at least as long as Azure's been around. Azure just hit its 15th birthday. They are now also looking at water usage effectiveness. And so within the last year, they have published not only the calculation of water usage effectiveness, but also Microsoft's goal of closed loop water as a way to cool servers. So besides submerging servers, which also deals with cooling and the potential heating issues from the workloads, Microsoft is also looking at closed loop use of water so that you're not constantly using other water. You're just recycling the water that you're using to cool the servers and thus the data centers. So from a sustainability perspective, Microsoft's not only looking at power and offsetting that with renewable energy, but they're looking at water consumption now as well. So PUE is power usage effectiveness, WUE is water unit effectiveness. And you can read more about that if you go out to Microsoft's blogs on their data centers. And Frank or Joseph, if either of you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. I don't know if we had any questions come through the chat. I see Satyam.
Okay, so yeah, Dan, thank you very much. This is actually an eye-opener. I'm not in my regular my regular position, so I'm struggling to really settle down some things. So my question will just be how the situation of extreme cold temperature is handled.
Yeah, that's a great question because there are places in the world where either extreme heat or extreme cold is experienced. And that might be, something you can predict. Like in Chicago, you're going to have months where it is extremely cold. In some of the workloads, extreme cold is some of what Microsoft has been testing for like quantum computing. Sometimes operating servers and systems at extremely cold temperatures not only addresses the heat that's generated from those servers, but might be used as part of the testing or the research that Microsoft's done. I don't have any specific examples of that, but I know in Chicago, for instance, that's why the server containers were put inside. The containers themselves could probably have operated outdoors because the container was closed and then the heat produced from the servers may have kept the running temperature inside the container hot enough. And then if it's hot out, you're putting out extra heat. If it's cold out, the actual heat that you're putting out, I know could be used for other things. I do know that at Microsoft's worldwide headquarters in Redmond, one of the self-guided tours that we had an opportunity to do at the MVP Summit was to walk along what do they call it? It's above a cricket field, and it's the thermo heating and cooling center, I think. And what they do there is they have, I guess, GPUs and the servers that are putting out heat, and the heat that they generate is used for a cricket field, or sits on top of a cricket field. I'll have to see if I can find some links to either a Microsoft Online article or maybe a video to send you on that. But that's a good point. Like what happens when it does get extremely hot or extremely cold. Servers are putting out more heat, so in the heat you have to keep them in a operating temperature that they're accustomed to so you don't have hardware failures. And if it's extremely cold, you might have the same types of concerns about servers failing or equipment having problems operating in extreme cold.
Yeah, I see an interesting documentary about where they have all the servers where they mine the Bitcoin in
Right.
Iceland, and it's fairly cold up there. So cold environments are kind of very good for running them because
Yeah.
you don't need to be using more electricity to cool them down. Where
Yeah, and I know servers, just like laptops and other devices, they have a wider range now of temperature that they've been tested with and that they've been designed for. So I know that was one of the other things that's happened in the data centers. Is a lot of the data centers that I was in when I was younger were very, very cold. They were kept at like 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough that you might want a jacket or long
yeah,
sleeves for certain. Servers these days, nowadays, don't need to be kept at such cold temperatures.
no,
Um, so that, Frank, to your point, is another reason that unless it's cold outside, and you might have to think about heating, um, servers don't need to be in those like chilly rooms. You still have to worry about particulates and the atmosphere. So I know with the underwater testing, that was another thing that they tested was why does the atmosphere need to be um, supporting human beings, because we're not in that container with the servers. So I know they did some investigation of different types of atmospheric um, conditions to avoid like oxidation or rusting or failures that might be related to a oxygen-rich environment? Great question.
Yeah, so I suppose with the new AI servers now, then I heard an interesting. I was at a conference, and they were saying those servers, because they use so much power and they get so hot, that the life cycle of them is going to be less than standard servers. You know, where you might get 5 years from a standard server, these will be a lot less. So they're going to be refreshing them a lot more.
Yeah. I read something about Microsoft doing like a closed, I don't remember what they called it. It was like circular recycling. But what they're looking at is, to your point, you know, maybe the failures are happening because of the heat on the GPUs. So if the GPUs are either failing or improving over time, instead of throwing out like the power supplies or the processors or the other components that might not be changing as rapidly, Microsoft is also looking at how to make sure that they are reusing and recycling equipment that hasn't gone through that either, you know, deterioration or, you know, needs to be replaced because of performance. So there's a whole recycling of hardware site that I found too in researching the updates.
Cool. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff changing in the data center world at the moment, because everybody is looking for more speed.
Yes.
Was it the AI thing? I had an interesting. I uploaded a picture to ChatGPT there last week, and up popped a message. Because of the high volume of traffic, you'll have to wait a while before we can process your image.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of that type of stuff going on with throttling. I know with Microsoft Designer, they give you credits. And when your credits run out, you have to either wait or purchase more credits because Microsoft Designer is made available for free at this point. So some of these services, Microsoft and other vendors, I'm sure, are having to think about, you know, how do you either pay for that use or how do you throttle that use, right?
Yeah, I suppose eventually everyone is going to have to pay for it.
Yep.
They gave it free for so long now. It's time to pay back. Maybe
Yep.
that.
Very true.
Yeah. So interesting times ahead.
Yes.
So Joseph, I'll share my screen and I'll do the agents. Have you any preference on what type of agents you'd like to see, or Dan, did you see any interesting agents being developed?
Great question. I have a lot of interest in some of the new types of agents. Have you played around with Researcher or anything yet?
I'm not researcher.
Okay. That's coming, right?
Not too sure now. Is that in the new?
I heard about it in Copilot Studio, and from the one of the VPs from Microsoft was in Chicago on Friday, and he was talking about Researcher and some of the other announcements. They might be around and demoed at Build. I know I'm going at Build in the middle of the month. Yes, Angel says all of them. There's thousands of agents, and I believe with Copilot Studio there might be millions of users that were mentioned. So I know there's tons of stuff going on from an agentic perspective right now.
Yeah. So like in Power Platform, you have 1,400 of them available already, templates, you know. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I'll just share my screen there, and we'll see, can we do some stuff on the AI agents? You see my screen there, Dan?
Yep, perfectly.
So I just go through just a couple of slides, and then we might do some demos on AI agents in Copilot Chat, whereas that's the kind of the free kind of one where people can go on and there's a couple of different models. There's a pay as you go, and there's subscription. If you had a tenant and you had a good few users on your tenant, you can pay $200 and you get a license for the Copilot Studio. So this is the kind of the low code option in Copilot Studio and SharePoint Copilot Studio. So the Copilot Studio, as you can see there over on the right hand side, has a lot more kind of resources. So it's more powerful option to retrieve knowledge and platform tasks using a variety of data. So I'm not going to read everything through all the slides because there's too much there, but it'll just give you kind of an overview, who can build them, and all the different resources inside them. So when using Microsoft 365 Copilot or using Copilot Studio user licenses. So the Copilot Studio here, and when we're talking about the agent complexity, the first one, the Copilot Agent Builder, is only got a search and retrievals sort of thing, and that's like kind of searching the internet and retrieving the data to put out onto your agent. And the same then for the SharePoint one is kind of search. Either you could use your company data at SharePoint site, or you can search the internet and retrieve whatever information is there. But the Copilot Studio then is kind of different. It can do all the search and retrieval from either the internet or your own company's data, or it can be a task-based one. You can give it a task to kind of do something, send an email or something like that, or get it to write an article for you or something like that. But the really good part of it is the autonomous part of it. So a person doesn't have to get involved in an agent like previous kind of chatbots. It could go so far, and then it would have to trigger a human to intervene, whereas Copilot Studio can build these agents that are totally autonomous. You give it enough information, you know, we'd say could be something like an email helper. So if you kind of have a service where customers are asking questions all the time, you can make it autonomous, so you don't have to go in and answer the emails. This can do it itself. So where users can access it, Copilot Chat is the first one. You can have it on Microsoft 365 apps and Teams and Copilot Studio. The SharePoint is basic enough, SharePoint or Teams chat, but you'll get an awful lot more then on Copilot Studio, where you can have it on Teams, Copilot Chat, M365 Copilot apps, Teams, Outlook. You can have any websites or any apps. So you're getting a bigger experience with the Copilot Studio. So what data is supported? General web content there, Microsoft Graph connectors, SharePoint sites, folders, files. But over in the Copilot Studio, you've got a whole lot more than where you got your SharePoint sites, folders, files, Microsoft Graph connector, and the 1,400 plus Power Platform data connectors. You've public websites, dataverse tables, API data. So you got a whole lot more going on with the Copilot Studio than anything else. So these are some examples of the templates that Microsoft has put together. So you can have a writing coach where it can provide feedback on writing, help you change the tone of a message, translate text, and assist in writing text. And so then you've got the idea coach, helps you brainstorm and organize ideas. Prompt coach, self-explanatory. Career coach, learning coach, and visual creator. That visual creator is very good. You can actually give it text and it can actually create images and videos, which is cool. So I said definitely check out that one, visual creator. So other examples of the one then in the Copilot chat, you can have an onboarding buddy, assist you with new hires in your company, providing with training, answer questions, set up meetings, and resume reviewer, self-explanatory, contract and legal reviews. It can automate stuff, so if somebody asks something about a particular legal document, it can kind of feed that back to them without you having to intervene. Research assistant can retrieve research material from your company's database and provide relevant information you need. And policy search offer comprehensive policy lookup capabilities, answer inquiries about company policies, and so forth. So this is kind of typically how the actual build the agent. So you access the agent in the Copilot chat. I'll demonstrate that in a minute, and we'll make a full Copilot chat agent. So it's kind of define your agent purpose, tell it what you want to create and what you want to build. Then you add if you want to add in your organization's data. If you were doing, we say HR agent, you could have all your kind of policies and added them into the agent. So you have these policies would be specifically for your company, and you can actually attach them to the agent. So somebody asks a question about onboarding, this will automatically email them the onboarding details and where they can get all the information. So the other one then is define the agent's behavior, right? It uses natural language interface to define how your Copilot should assist the users and what tone to use. If you want to use the casual or professional or when responding. Step 5, then try your agent and add additional customizations. Right, so that's kind of configuring the different way and add additional knowledge sources to it. So then you're publishing your agent. So you just create, and next to it then there's a publish one. So you can publish it, and you can either add it to your company's website or you can email it to different people. That's where you can actually share your agent across your organization to unlock capacity at scale. You can also review agents in the right-hand pane. You'll see this better now when I do the demo in the Copilot chat. And then use your agent. You can send it out in links in Teams and so forth. So these are examples of agents. It says the SharePoint one, but it's for all the different cases. So you can use it for customer services, sales, finance, marketing, HR, legal, and IT for kind of knowledge-based stuff. So it's used in a wide range. This is only a kind of a sample case. So, and this is for all the build things. It's all the kind of 8 steps, so they're all kind of configured in the same way. These are other examples, templates that Microsoft have put together, so you can have a store operation, sustainability insights, award and recognition, IT help desk. You can even have a weather co-pilot. So you might even try and do that one later. So this is the same now in the Copilot Studio. The 8 steps are all the same for the 3 that we had up earlier on the screen. So you can see the example of the Microsoft build draft. So you can connect in third parties. You don't just have to use Microsoft stuff. You can use ServiceNow or Salesforce, even Jira. So Microsoft invests in accredited your time and value. Okay, so I'm just going to escape out of, and I'm going to go in here to my M365 Copilot, and so you can see over here on the right hand side, you got a new chat up here if you want to start a new chat. But we're talking about the agents. You got the visual creator that I was talking about earlier. He's up here in the top right hand corner. And you can get, I was talking about third party agents, right? So if you click on get agents, it opens up here and it's got tons of stuff. Like over here on the left hand side, you got popular ones, so you can click on all the different popular ones. People might actually know some of these already. Sprinkler, Work in Sync. There's just absolutely Keeper AI, Fuse, My Hub. So there's tons of stuff in there. So I'm looking at just the Microsoft ones at the minute. So I'm just going to click in here and we can see some of the stuff that Microsoft has there, like the writing coach, learning coach, prompt coach, career coach there. So there's some of Microsoft stuff. So they've got different categories then on the left hand side, like productivity, project management, utilities, social. So as you can see, there's tons of them. So I'm just going to go back to the agents and just go back to the home page here, Copilot. And we're going to, on the right hand side there where it says create an agent. Okay, so this is inside the chat, Copilot Studio chat. So it gives you up in the top part here, describe, and then the other one then after that is configure. So down the bottom here, you got a kind of a prompt where you want to put in where you want to get started. Or you can actually here, you can view all templates if you want. We'll just click into that and just give it a list of templates that are already there. So quiz tutor, Scrum assistant, writing coach, meeting coach. So as you can see, there's a good few. So we'll just type in here, we'll do the weather. weather agent. And we'll just hit enter. And we'll see it's coming up on the right hand here now. This is what it's configuring for the weather agent. So if we click on configure up here, it gives us a different, right? So it's asking us what you want to call your agent. So I'm just gonna call it my weather agent. Okay, so then the next one, description, this agent provides weather information to users. Okay, self-explanatory, we'll go with that. It gives us kind of instructions down here then as well. You know, it provides up-to-date weather information, response to the user's query about current weather forecasts and weather conditions. Ensure responses are clear and concise. Avoid discussing unrelated topics. So these are all the prompts for making the actual. So this is the knowledge-based thing I was talking to you about earlier. So you can actually browse, and obviously for a weather forecasting agent, you don't want to kind of be adding documentation into it. This is only kind of like if you were to do HR agent, you could have all your policies, so you could go browse, go to the particular folder you have on your OneDrive or in some other location. Or you can actually put in a URL of, say, maybe your favorite weather site that you want to go to. You could put that in there. But for now, I'm just leaving it as the Microsoft default one, right? So then down here, look, see the current prompts are over here on the right hand side. So current weather conditions, weather forecasts, weather conditions, and you could add a new one here. You can put in the title of say weather warnings. So if there's any weather warnings for your thing, you can the latest. What is the latest weather warnings? In your location, in my location. Okay, so it will add that down. You can see there, there's 4 of them there now. So we can actually test it out here. We can just put in, or we can just click one of the prompts up here. So we'll click on what is the current weather in the location. So what we'll do here is where I am. I'm just going to put that into the prompt. So just delete that. And so I'm in Cork in Ireland. Cork, Ireland. So we'll just see what it comes back with. So it's processing. So it's currently don't have the latest weather data for Ireland. However, I can help you find current weather conditions forecasts for Cork. Please wait a moment. Okay. So we'll just go up and we'll hit on create, and maybe we'll try that again to see will that work. So it's creating the agent. So it gives you an option then here to copy and share the agent if you want. But just for this demo, we're just going to go to the agent. Okay, so here is now in the middle with our 4 prompts. This is the actual agent, and we'll just try again, and we'll put the location inside in the brackets this time and see will that work. Okay, we'll try that and see. Okay, so that was it. No, what is? It's just saying I currently don't have the latest weather data for Cork, Ireland. However, I can provide a general information about the weather conditions in Cork. Typically, okay, so maybe if I put in, yeah, it says web content is configured, so I'm just not sure why it didn't pick up the weather forecast for there. So we're just going to pop over to my Copilot Studio. So this is the Copilot Studio here. So it gives you a couple of prompts on top. So I'm just going to ask it put it in the stock market. So basically those 2 words I'm just putting in there, and I'm just going to see what it actually comes up with. Okay, so it says, hello, I'm here to help you build an agent so you can get more done. You can say something like provide best practices for project management or help teammates onboard new project. What would you like to make? And so I already put in down here. Great. Now let's determine the name for your agent. So we can call it, it's suggesting we'll call it Stock Market Advisor. So I'm just going to call it something else. So we're going to call it Stock Market Helper. Okay, and I'm just going to hit enter on the prompt. So it's going to look at what I put in there, and then it's now let's refine the instructions for your agent, right? So it says first, let's define your agent, what it should do. For example, provide stock market updates and insights, or assist users with stock market analysts. What would you like your agent to do? So we're going to copy out all this, and we wanted to do most of that for us. So we're going to paste it down here and edit it, and provide stock market updates and insights, right? And I'm just going to delete this and assist users with stock market analysts. So I'm going to hit the prompt, and then it's going to see what I actually put in, and it's going to load up. So understood. Now let's refine the guidelines for your agent. What specific guidelines or rules should agents follow when providing stock market updates and insights? For example, use reliable and up-to-date sources, avoid giving financial advice. What guidelines will you use? So we're just going to use the middle one here, right, for this demo. Use reliable and up-to-date sources, and we'll just hit enter then. Okay, so it's telling me next, let's define any constraints for your agents. For example, do not provide personalized financial advice or only public accessible data sources. So I'm just going to only use publicly accessed data sources and paste that into the prompt. And you can add your own to it if you want, but just for this demo, I'm just going to do that. So it should be nearly towards the end of it now. So your agent is now set up with the name Stock Market Helper. It will provide stock market updates and insights, assist users with stock market analysis, use reliable and up-to-date data sources, and only use publicly accessible data sources. Would you like to add any public websites or data sources to your agent? This is optional. So I'll just say no and hit the prompt. So your agent is now set up. You can continue exploring Copilot Studio, add more functionalities to your agent wherever. I'm here to make any further refinements you have to your agent. So up in the top right-hand corner, I got a button there called Create. So I'm just going to hit that, and you'll see it setting up your agent. So I think doing anything before with coding, whatever, this is so simple. So we'll just leave that load. So here we are. This is our agent. So over on the right hand side, it's giving me, hello, I'm your stock market helper, a virtual assistant. Just so you are aware, I sometimes use AI to answer your questions. If you provide a website during the creation, try asking me about it. Next, try give me some more knowledge by setting up generative AI. Okay, so this is the agent just inside here. It's called Stock Market Helper. So it's got a couple of buttons on it there. Use generative AI to determine the best use of the agent. So we can turn that on if we want. So you can enable or whatever. So this one here, knowledge, data files, other resources, or wherever it loads AI to use its own general knowledge. Okay, so you can add different things to it here. You can add triggers to it. So kind of if you wanted to email it out to yourself or stuff that's been asked of the agent, you can go in and add that. And different sort of conversations, topics, and ways your agent can answer. So these are different kind of prompts then as well on it. Right, so we have to publish it then up here. Right, we can do a test on it. But we just publish it, and you can see how actually quick it is to make the agent and publish it. And I'll just give it one test then, and we should be coming up on the hour. So it says here your agent was published. Okay. Okay, so it gives you up in the top hand side there, it gives you overview, knowledge, topics, actions, activity, analytics. So we'll hit on the test button there. So can you the top TEC tech stocks. Simple prompt. Can you give me the top? Give me the top 10 tech stocks. Okay. Okay, so over on the right hand side, then it gave me, right, Apple number 1, Microsoft 2, Alphabet, Amazon. So yeah, that looks all correct there to me. So that's kind of an example of Copilot Chat, Copilot Studio agents. One out of the 2 worked anyway. So there you go, guys. Any questions on that?
Angel asked if this was being recorded, Frank, and I believe I responded with, he could get to the recording later.
Yeah, it's recorded. It's on my YouTube channel, and it's on my LinkedIn Live, and it's on Joseph's YouTube channel as well. So yeah, interesting.
Excellent demo.
Yeah, I don't know why the weather part didn't work. I must have to. Should have added in maybe something like BBC weather or something, and would have went over there and searched it maybe. I must check that out again.
That was great, honestly, Frank. I know I did something about onboarding Buddy also myself, right? So
yeah.
Stretching for that to Copilot Studio actually makes a lot of sense. That's a great demo.
Yeah, it's very easy kind of steps. Once you know what you want, like weather forecaster or the stock market agent, it knows what you actually want, and it gives you the next prompt, kind of like, which is, it takes all the work out of it, you don't have to use your brain, like it's there in front of you, it's telling you,
Yeah, definitely.
That makes sense. It did pull out all the top 10 stock market ones there, like Apple, Microsoft. Great. But I set up a different one last week, and it can kind of give you strategies and how to use stock markets and get different insights. So you could kind of set it up to really kind of, you can make it kind of autonomous. You can watch the stock market for you, like if Microsoft drops below $300 or $400, send me an email, so I want to buy them, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
it's a great point.
Yeah, so it's really what you put in there, kind of really the prompts. Think about a couple of things. I just put in 1 or 2 things, but if you put in 2 or 3, Amelia had a good thing about kind of setting up some of the prompt there before. Yeah,
that's great so far. Yeah, I think mine actually used M35 Copilot. So the information source was my SharePoint site. So I created some files in one of my folders on my SharePoint site, and I referenced only those documents to say, use this to build the onboarding Buddy. I actually followed the instruction on the PowerPoint presentation you showed, and I was following it one after the other, and I was just copying and pasting, and then it just gave me what I wanted, because I blocked it from accessing the internet, so it should use the knowledge base within the policy document I was providing. So it was restricted to the HR department only. So that's one great thing about it that I know. Right.
Yeah. I'm just maybe this week I'll work on trying to get one of the autonomous agents, the one that nobody has to interact with. Could be a good demo for next week, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Should.
Yeah. So guys, we're up on the hour. So we'll be back next week again, and maybe you might do some more demos on those AI agents. Anybody need any questions? Feel free to contact me through LinkedIn and come and see us again next week. So thanks very much. We'll be back again next Saturday. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Take care.